Associative state versus autonomous region. What sets them apart? Let's dive in. What is an associative state? An associative state is a political arrangement where an entity enjoys a degree of sovereignty and autonomy while maintaining a formal association with a larger sovereign state. This relationship is typically governed by specific agreements on governance, mutual obligations, and shared responsibilities such as defense or foreign relations. Associative states usually have their own government with extensive self-rule and are often granted the capacity to enter into international agreements. The relationship is defined by association agreements, and the smaller entity may sometimes unilaterally leave the association, potentially paving the way for independence. In international law, this setup is often seen as a step toward full statehood. At present, the Cook Islands and Niue remain in free association with New Zealand, and the Marshall Islands, Palau, and Micronesia are in free association with the United States. They govern themselves but rely on their associated states for certain areas like defense and international representation, maintaining their status as associative states. What is an autonomous region? An autonomous region is a subnational area within a sovereign state that has been granted specific powers of self-governance by the central government, typically addressing cultural, economic, or administrative matters to accommodate ethnic, linguistic, or cultural differences. It operates entirely within the sovereignty of the state, with its powers delegated by the national constitution or law, which can be limited or revoked by the central government. Core areas like foreign policy, defense, and national security remain under the central government's control. A notable example is the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, is an associative state allowed by the Philippine Constitution. This was addressed in the case of the province of North Cotabato versus the Government of the Republic of the Philippines Peace Panel on Ancestral Domain, GR number 1 83591, October 14, 2008. The case arose when the Philippine government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF, negotiated the Memorandum of Agreement on Ancestral Domain, MOAID, to create a Bangsamoro Juridical Entity, BJE. The MOAID proposed granting the BJE extensive autonomy and control over ancestral lands, raising concerns about sovereignty and constitutional violations. The agreement was negotiated without proper public consultation, leaving local governments and communities uninformed. This lack of transparency and the controversial terms led to public opposition and legal challenges. The BJE would have effectively become an associative state because it was given powers and privileges similar to an independent state. It would have had its own government, control over its land, water, and airspace, and the ability to enter into agreements with other countries. Powers typically reserved for sovereign states. By linking the BJE to the Philippine government but allowing it significant independence, the MOAAD set the stage for potential full independence, exceeding the limits allowed under the Philippine Constitution. The Supreme Court ruled the MOAAD unconstitutional for violating the Philippine Constitution. 1. Violated national sovereignty. It gave the Bangsamoro Juridical Entity, BJE, powers similar to a state, like controlling territory, airspace, and resources, and making international agreements, undermining Philippine sovereignty. 2. Lack of public consultation. The government failed to consult local governments, communities, and the public, violating the people's right to information and participation. 3. Bypassed constitutional processes. It proposed changes like an associative relationship with the BJE that required constitutional amendments, which only Congress or a constitutional convention can do. 4th. Ignored legal procedures. The MOAAD disregarded the local government code because it bypassed the mandated consultations with local government units and affected communities, which are legally required for agreements impacting land use, territorial changes, or local governance. Similarly, it ignored the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, which outlines specific legal processes for recognizing ancestral domains, including obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent FPIC of Indigenous peoples. 5. Guaranteed amendments without authority. The Peace Panel guaranteed constitutional changes without having the authority to do so, as only Congress or the people can approve such amendments. Sixth, contradicted autonomous region rules. It created a more powerful entity than the constitutionally allowed autonomous regions, granting the BJE treaty-making powers and control over national security. 7. Undermined territorial integrity. Treating the BJE as a separate entity with vast territory risked breaking up the Philippines, violating its constitutional unity. It is worth noting that the Philippine Congress enacted the Bangsamoro Organic Law, BOL, in 2018, replacing the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, ARMM, with the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, BARMM. The BOL is constitutional as it complies with the framework for autonomous regions defined in the Philippine Constitution, Article 10, Sections 15 to 21. Unlike the Bangsamoro Juridical Entity, BJE, proposed in the MOAAD, which sought to create an associative state, BARMM remains fully under the sovereignty of the Philippines as an autonomous region, governed by laws enacted through constitutional processes. Why are autonomous regions vital to the Philippines' identity and unity? An autonomous region in the Philippines exists to address the unique cultural, historical, and socio-political needs of certain groups, particularly those with distinct identities like the Bangsamoro people. It allows self-governance over local affairs such as cultural preservation, economic development, and governance while ensuring they remain part of the Philippine state. This arrangement promotes peace, respects diversity, and fosters inclusion, especially in areas historically affected by conflict and marginalization. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's empower Filipinos one click at a time.